All right, Drew Farnese, thank you for coming on the Boardroom Podcast.
Absolutely, brother. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for
This
having
is
me.
this happened so perfectly because I did have somebody that had booked right before this that had to move their time and date, and you end up being my first podcast guest, which I think I've been on your podcast what 2 or 3 times now.
Definitely. Yup.
The
Yup.
repayment just happened perfectly. If there's going to
Always a
be
good
a good
time.
first guest, it's got to be Drew Farnese.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm excited.
So I know we were talking off camera a little bit about the rabbit holes that we like to climb down, but I do want to start with your new journey here because and I'll let you talk about it, but you tell us a little bit about your background in the real estate industry as a wholesaler and a flipper and what you're doing now.
Yeah, man. So, a little over a decade now, I've been a real estate investor in many different facets, right? I started out as a fix and flipper, which led into buying some rentals, which led into starting and scaling a wholesale company, which led to scaling the fix and flip company and starting a construction company to scale with that and everything. And yeah, like over the years, all of the different things that I've done, it's kind of weird to think about. Like all the way back to the beginning, when I was first buying fix and flips, when I started, I was buying everything off of the MLS, and like it was easier to find deals back then, just in
Yeah.
general, all the way around. It was easier. I don't know if there was just less competition or there were more distressed houses available. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely easier. But still, the way that I was doing that all the way back then, I was kind of like exporting all of the listings on the
Mhm.
MLS because at this point, we had done a bunch of projects. We knew our average cost per square foot to do the level of renovations that we would typically do. So we would basically export all the listings and plug in our variables. If we spend $50 a square foot on this property, could it be profitable, right? So rather than spending, 20 hours a week sifting through everything to try to find properties that made sense for us to flip or rent, I basically had this Excel spreadsheet thing that I was doing that helped me not spend 20 hours and instead spend, 45 minutes a day or something, right? It made
Yeah.
it digestible. And fast forward all these years, like I built and scaled a wholesale company. So we did tons of direct to seller marketing. And for a while, that transpired to meaning that I scaled back on fix and flip because I was focused on wholesale. And so for a long time, I wasn't buying anything off the MLS, but I always had this idea in the back of my mind, especially as I started to spend more and more and more money on
Yeah.
marketing and doing direct to seller. It's like, okay, like at the height of everything, we were spending $60,000 a month in marketing for the wholesale company. And it's like, okay, we were profitable and everything, but in the back of my mind, it's still like, okay, our average cost per contract got up to around $5,000 per contract, which is a
Yeah.
whole rabbit hole in itself, right?
Right.
Everybody's like, wholesalers make too much fucking money. It's
Yeah.
like, well, you have no idea what it costs to run that either. But my point is, in the back of my mind, it's like it costs us $5,000 to get a contract, and there's a lot of work involved as well, sales teams and systems and processes, all this stuff. And at the same time, I used to buy all my deals for $0, on the MLS. Like, why can't I go back to doing that? So started playing around a couple years ago to basically recreate the system that I was using all the way back then with Microsoft Excel and a bunch of manual work and turn it into a system, a process, a software essentially. So started working on that, and I really thought, because I'm naive and frankly kind of stupid on a lot of things, that I would be able to like build an MVP of that software for like 30, 50,000 bucks or something. And the wholesale company was super profitable, so I kind of had to park some money anyway. And dude, I burned through 50 grand like in the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 months of trying to build something. I think like the first version that I kind of released to the public, like I had probably spent, I don't know, $125,000, $150,000. I don't know.
Isn't that like
By the time I
anything?
released that,
Isn't that like anything we jump into? We feel like it's going to be easier than it actually ends up to be 100% of the time.
always, brother, always. And you know, it's funny, like that concept itself, I think that's a superpower. People think that like that's a bad thing. Like, well, you don't know what you're doing when you go into a new hobby or a new business venture or whatever. I think that's a superpower. Being naive is an incredible thing because if you know all the things that could go wrong or all the things that are going to kill you, you would never do anything.
I was going to say that to something you brought up in the beginning. You said it felt like it was easier back then, and I've heard that from multiple people, and I would probably agree that it was easier for us too. And I'd love to get your take on this. I feel like there's a level of ignorance there, where in the beginning you're buying because you're excited about buying things. So
That's true.
the offers are a little less defined. We're not analyzing as strictly, especially if we've been burned a couple times. We're not analyzing as strictly as we would after we get burned. So I feel like we bought more in the beginning, maybe some things that we wouldn't buy today.
So looking back to the beginning though, were there projects that you bought that you kind of regret that you lost money on and stuff like that?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I can cliche that a little bit because we wouldn't buy this one particular house again that we bought in Honeybrook. We lost $40,000 on it. It was a bank-owned property. We weren't allowed to do any inspections on. It had a septic system, but it was on 6 acres. We ended up doing a whole presentation on a local meetup about this, about the 10 things that went wrong during this project, where I say we wouldn't buy it again. The lessons learned during it made us really stronger investors moving forward. We were like, it's 6 acres. How can this not perk? It damn near didn't. It failed in a bunch of
Wow.
spots, and we had to run millions and millions of feet of pipe to. I think it ended up being like 450 feet of pipe away from the house. It was like the last spot we could possibly perk, and our
Holy crap.
$20,000 septic system became astronomical. I forget, it was like $50,000 or $60,000. So that just ate up all of our profit. So we wouldn't do that deal again, but I'm not sorry that it happened, if that makes sense.
Dude, that makes perfect sense. That's perfectly clear. And I think a lot of people don't put value to experience and lessons taken away from something like,
Yeah.
that was a massive learning lesson for you. And by the way, if that same deal happened and originally you were planning to make $100,000 on it and that issue popped up and instead of making 100,000 you made 60,000, it's like that was a big issue, big mistake. But if you came out like still ahead, you would not have had as impactful of a learning experience from it.
Right. And where I think, and this is where I use the word ignorance lightly. Uh, in the beginning, we would buy based on everything going perfectly, where now we buy based on everything not going perfectly. So it does change the volume in which you may purchase because the ones that are close, you may pass on now. That's okay. I think there's a growth and a strength in that.
Absolutely, man. Couldn't agree more. I love that.
So back to where you were heading with that. It's I know your company is Revamp 365. The software you created is using the same name, right? Revamp AI.ai.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right?
Yup. We're actually going through right now. Like, I haven't really been focused on the wholesale company. Like, we still do wholesale. But for the last 2 years, like, most of my effort, energy, and focus has gone into software. And, yeah, as a result of that, since I branded, excuse me, the software company as Revamp 365 also, now I'm at the point where, like, we just got a trademark filed and everything, and I have to
That's awesome.
go and rebrand the wholesale company to, not have the same name and everything. So
Okay.
it's a whole thing because, I have, I don't know, $8,000 worth of signs on my building that say Revamp 365, we buy houses. And it's like, well, that's going to be a different brand now. So,
Right, right.
but yes, revamp365.ai is the software platform that helps investors find deals, flips, rentals, and also helps on the other end for wholesalers that are trying to sell properties, you know.
And I know in the beginning, and I'm aware now that this has changed. Obviously, the progression of the project. The I don't know if the software has changed, but at least the viewer from the user's standpoint has changed. I know I used it a while ago when we were still wholesaling full time, and even back then it was awesome. Like there were so many features in that. What I want to dive into a couple of these is the fact that you could post your wholesales on there.
Mm-hmm.
Mailing lists, right? You could upload your mailing list into there. It was like almost like creating this all-encompassing space.
Yep. Yep. Dude, you are going to love it. You're going to be mind blown. Like once I get you in there again and everything. Cause just in the last few weeks, like we went through a full, long story short, started building the platform probably 3 years ago. And around February or March of last year, we started rebuilding the entire product. We were essentially built on top of a low code platform, which worked great until it didn't. You know, as soon as we had over 1,000 users, like, you know, the system just kind of got bogged down and started
Yeah.
loading slowly. And it's like, wow, I've literally not expanded past a 75-mile radius of where I operate, and we're already like at the system capacity, right? So this is not good. We need to go back and kind of re-architect how everything was built. So we spent about 9 months on that and tore everything to the ground and totally custom coded everything, because I am the way that I am. I couldn't just let my dev team rebuild the product that existed. I was like, we have to also add these 17 things as well that I really want to have, you know,
Right,
because
yeah.
me selfishly as the investor, which is another point I want to bring up, right? Like I built this essentially for me, you know, and even once I had an MVP of it, it's like I didn't care about really making money with it. It's like, dude, I use this internally in my business operations, and it makes our life easier acquiring flips and rentals without, you know, that $5,000 in marketing costs. Like, so
Right.
that's how I kept justifying it to myself through the development process, you know?
Well, I feel like that's where some of the best products are born. Is you're a user of it, right? You're in the business. You're working the business. If you can make your life easier on a consistent basis, and even if you were to just tell somebody about that in person, like let's say you went to a meetup and you're like, I started doing this and I'm saving myself a bunch of hours a day. You're like, can I get my hands on this? Like,
Yep.
obviously, people are going to be excited about that because they're in the same genre as you are.
Exactly. Exactly. But so, yeah, like the first 2 years, we were essentially a way to cherry pick deals off the MLS. And if you're a wholesaler, you could post deals on there. That was kind of the extent of the features and capability of the platform. Now, the version that we just released a couple weeks ago, my goodness, it's it's in a category of its own at this point. You nationwide data and the best data sources in the country. So if you want to build lists to do marketing, we have the best skip tracing, which I really got to show you, our deep trace
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
for LLCs. That is insane. That's the first thing that I've ever built, honestly, that isn't an improvement on something that already exists, because everything with the platform, it's like, I think our platform is the greatest thing ever. Obviously I'm biased because
should.
I build it and I use it, you know. But the reality is everything that our software does, another platform already does it. We just do it a little bit differently and a little bit better, and pull, you know, 5 different softwares that you had to previously use into one platform, right? But with this deep trace, which basically what it does is skip trace LLCs and actually resolves to the correct owner, it's the first thing that I've ever built that did not exist before. It's like nobody else does this. There is no competition, and it's insane. I'm super fired up about it.
I feel like it's a perfect time for it too, because when you're saying like you're putting all these softwares into one, the just the standard progression of business when you're starting from day one, like you said, you started with Excel spreadsheets. So do we. And then you get your first CRM, and then there's some fancy add-ons you can put to your CRM, and that gets exciting. And then now you're in. You have the disease of the squirrel syndrome. Like the next shiny object that comes down the road, you're going to sign up for. And then you find yourself with 15 different programs that you're paying for on a monthly basis. So once you hit that and you're like, what am I doing? And you can put some of those into one. Now you come down the other side of the hill and you're like, this, I got to make my life easier here. I can't be working out of 10 to 15 different software programs. So I love that in it. I mean, just in the beta testing, off the top of my head, you could take 4 different softwares and merge them into one. Even back, what was that, a year and a half ago?
Yep. Honestly, dude, it's kind of it's really humbling for me. Like some of the feedback that I've gotten since this new release, I had a couple people tell me like I canceled my prop stream subscription after playing around for a week, and it's like, wow, that because our intention wasn't even to be a competitor to massive companies like PropStream or Deal Machine or Investor Lift or any of these guys. And to hear that, like people are viewing our product not only at the same table as these behemoths, but they like what we have better. It's like, that's really cool.
Right. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's like anything else. You can still play in the game. It's not about taking anybody else down. It's about making what's working for you, and other people are going to relate to that.
That's right. That's right.
Did you have any kind of a development or software background prior to wholesaling, or just zero?
Zero.
Wow. So tell me about that experience. That has to be a whole new management level.
Yes and no. So for me, it's very similar to like what my journey was in flipping houses and wholesaling as well. Like when I first started flipping houses, like I grew up around construction. Like my dad was a contractor, but I was never professionally employed in any trades, right? But over time, hiring different subs and things going wrong. It's always when things go wrong that you learn. I had to learn basically every aspect of construction, right? It forced me to be well-rounded. It's like I'm not a master in anything in construction, right? But I know enough about everything so I can effectively manage a project, manage crews, manage independent contractors, whatever, right? And I can build stuff, like I can do all that now because I had to learn over time.
Yeah.
And then it was the same thing for me in wholesaling. I didn't know about sales and marketing, and I tried to hire people and it didn't go well because I didn't know enough about how to set things in place for these people in these positions to be successful. So I had to learn it, right? Exact same thing in software. I hired a couple different developers, and to make matters worse for me, it's like I could not afford United States-based developers, right? So I'm hiring people in other countries that the English barrier is an obstacle in itself before we even get into work-related tasks. So yeah, a lot of things went really wrong, and I wasted a lot of money, which in turn forced me to learn a little bit about how to do all of the things that I'm hiring the people to do. Now, fast forward to today, it's like I don't look at myself as a developer by any means.
Yeah. But, you have
but I can code in like a couple different languages and everything, because I was forced to.
So I wouldn't say you wasted all the money. There is just like when we lost money on the flip.
Exactly. Yep. That's a productive way to look at it. I love that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You got to flip to the positive.
Dude. Or you drive yourself crazy.
I would imagine, and you can relate it to probably wholesaling too. Like you said, when you were learning the business, is you might want something, but you don't know what you want, especially in the software space. Like I would love an app that does this. You're like, well, how are we going to make it do that? I don't know. And that's exactly, you don't even know what to ask for in some cases.
Yup. And the only way to learn is to get your hands dirty, man. Get in the weeds and really, really touch things. See how it works. See how it breaks. And that's applicable in any industry, right? Like I really, for me personally, I don't think I could ever be in any business, any industry, and be successful without understanding how all of the pieces work. And of course, I understand and support fully like delegation and everything. That's not what this is about. But I think, and people would argue me on this, and I'd love to hear your take. But people talk about like right person, right seat, and everything. I agree. But I still think that you need to know, as the leader of an organization, you need to know enough about that role to make sure that the person that you have in that role is being effective.
I agree with that. Even if in the beginning you just have to suck some things up. Like you're going to do things that you don't like to do for that reason. Because I went through the same progression when we started our flipping business. We started to bring people on for different tasks, either in the office or in the field, and I didn't have any desire to learn these tasks or jobs. I just wanted to bring that person in that I would assume would just learn it on their own, which is ignorant. But like you, I was not. My background, my background's in the firehouse. I did have to manage my guys because for a period of time I was a captain in the firehouse. But the difference between the leadership and the management on the fire side versus the business side, it doesn't matter which business outside of the firehouse or first responders, because the people you're getting when you put an ad out are new to your business. They don't know how your business operates. They don't know your SOPs. They don't know any of your processes. In the firehouse, I'm getting people from the academy that are trained up. They know the job. They know the certain things that we need to do on a fire scene. So I'm getting people that are essentially trained in the job. They're just assigned to my station. So there's a big difference there. So the managing of the people is the expectations already there. And when I carry that over to business, it does not work.
Yep. Yep. Fully agree. And I think a lot of people would just combat that by saying, oh, well, just hire better people, Chris. Just hire A players and everything will be fine. It's like that's I'm not saying that that's wrong, but it's not entirely possible all the time, because if you're a bootstrapped founder, the reality is an A player, if you find them in the first place, is probably going to cost you 3 times more than any other employee in that same role or responsibility. So if I'm a startup and it's a tough pill to swallow, even affording a $60,000 a year salary, how am I going to pay this A player $120,000 to $150,000 a year?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
And you can hire, and I've hired great people and managed them and trained them like shit. And you don't get the A player abilities out of them if you're a bet. It's like putting Michael Jordan on the bench for the whole game.
That's right.
And wondering why he didn't score 50 points.
Yep. Fully agree. Fully agree.
So yeah, that was a management and leadership lesson that I learned the hard way more than once. I'd say more than 3 or 4 times probably. But I would come out of an industry like the firehouse and be like, leadership is about working with your guys or your girls and moving forward together, almost like synchronized swimming. Like what you got to do when you get out of the truck. And to reteach that, you then became the instructor before you can become the leader. And that's what I had to learn the hard way. And once that happened, whether I can do that the right way or not, at least I know now moving in the future that I have to put somebody in that spot to be that person to train that person.
Mm-hmm.
To set them up for success. Otherwise, because in the beginning I was setting everybody up for failure, and they did a great job at it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Again, back to that being naive going into something. It's like, as long as you have the grit to persevere, right, and you can deal with metaphorically getting punched in the face with all of those employees that ended up not succeeding, and then being aware enough to be like, well, it's not that person is stupid. It's not that person is lazy. It's that I didn't do a good enough fucking job, which a lot of people can't do. They can't take accountability because it's like, no, that person just didn't do enough. They didn't work hard enough. They didn't want it bad enough. It's like, yeah, how about you didn't do a good enough fucking job training?
Yeah.
But if you can get over that, that's the learning experience and makes you better.
And full transparency for me, like I had a hard time with that. When I have the personality that when I get good at something, even if I struggled getting good at it, If I hire somebody that has experience in that exact same thing, I expect them to do the same. So when they would come in, my thing was sales. Like I dove into the sales. I studied it. I went to a bunch of boot camps. I went through some coaching, and then at the end of it, I came out and then I put it into play and became good at it. So when I started hiring salespeople and they weren't performing to my level, I'm like, how is this so hard? It wasn't, I didn't take that opportunity to train them and be like, I have to bring you up to this level. And that was something that was, I mean, like I said, full transparency. It was very difficult for me in the beginning, but now I understand what it takes to bring somebody up to that because it doesn't matter how good they were at sales before. Your product is different than what they sold before, so they have to learn your product.
That's absolutely right. And dude, I fully agree. Like I tell people all the time, I think almost everything that I've ever done in life at this point, when I first start, I really suck. Like I'm really bad, man. I mess up almost
Yeah, yeah.
everything I do many, many, many times over. So yeah, my experience was the same. It's hard to admit and accept that, yeah, I just didn't do a good enough job because we do have these standards that for most people, it's probably your standards are tied to what you know, and what you know is what you can do and your abilities. But
Right.
yeah, man.
And the good news of late that I've heard is that if all else fails, I hear there's great money in daycare nowadays.
That is true, man. That is true. Yo, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that reached out to me and they're like, hey, why did you put that cardboard sign up on your office? Because I just
Yeah,
made an AI picture to put over our sign that said revamp Leering Center.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, wow, people don't realize that this is AI. Like, I thought it was a very clear joke that.
I can't believe you paid for that sign.
Yeah, I know. I know. Funny, man. But that is the topic of the world today is AI, and that's why
Yeah.
so much that I'm doing with the software is heavily revolved around AI. And you know, I think the reality is anybody that doesn't adopt technology in any industry isn't going to be around two
Yeah.
to 3 years from now.
I mean, I know just on I'll take it away from real estate. Let's go to the contracting side because I just had experience with this recently. Somebody was showing me. It's a fully, I guess the word I'll use is adaptable. You can use this app and integrate it with your CRM or however you're tracking your leads. But when they go out to see potential clients or customers, I think they just walk around in a circle. It's almost like the Matterport we used to use for real estate. They walk around in a circle, and this thing has a full 3D diagram of this room maybe they're working on. Let's say it's a kitchen. It'll take a diagram of the kitchen, it'll have the countertops in place and all the appliances. It'll have depth and width and height, and the measurements seem to be accurate within like an eighth of an inch, which, all that time saved measuring.
That's
So
incredible.
the money you can make in contracting obviously is good, but think of how much more money you can make if instead of running 2 appointments a day, you can run six because you're in and out in 5 minutes instead of, measuring a kitchen might take you an hour. So in that, like with anything, especially if it's on the internet or if it's computer related, there's going to be bad actors. You're going to have, I mean, AI can produce some pretty funny videos and pictures, but there's also some good use for it too in business.
Dude, 100%. 100%. And, I think the weird part is that, like, if I asked you, what do you think the world is going to look like in 5 years? Where does your mind go?
So the mind goes in two different places. It goes to if you get sucked into like the fear mongering, is all these lost jobs, and I mean, based on my childhood TV watching, like the Jetsons, like we're getting closer to the Jetsons. But the other side of me uses some of this, and I feel comfortable again. Meaning, like I'm fairly new to utilizing AI for myself, and I'll just use it for like office related things. Like ChatGPT is is that one of the first ones out, or is it one of the first ones I learned about? And sometimes you'll ask it things that it just gives you a wild answer that makes no sense. And then you have to remind yourself, like, I'm not talking to a human here, even though sometimes it feels like it. So I don't. My overall arch on that is that it's only going to change as much as we let it. There's a disagreement in there.
No, it's a weird concept because, like, fundamentally, I agree. As people, like, what we should be able to be like, okay, if there is imminent risk in what we're doing technologically, and leave AI out of the conversation, right? Just the technology that we're currently building, if there is imminent risk to humanity, we should be able to collectively come together and say, we shouldn't do this anymore. Let's hit the stop button. But at the same time, knowing how the world works, which all hinges around business, I don't think there's any way to stop it. Because, like, it's one thing for small companies, right? Like, guys like us that have companies, whatever, 5, 10 employees or whatever. I still think businesses of that size need to adopt it, right? Like, because if not, and your competitor is, how are you competitive anymore? But more importantly, the biggest companies in the world, like, you can't tell me for a second that the CEO is presented with something from a tech company, an AI company. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about robotics in manufacturing or just software and AI agents to replace, some data entry analyst jobs or whatever. But somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Chris, your company with 50,000 employees and you're spending $1 billion a year, just for a number, in salaries. And this is your output. This is what you're able to produce. What if, instead of spending $1 billion a year, I can get you down to $400 million a year? And yeah, you have to pay us, $100 million, $200 million. Who the hell is going to say no?
Yeah.
Because, by the
Yeah.
way, your competitor is adopting the same technology. So if you don't, you may not want to cut jobs, right? You may want to keep all them people around and everything. But the reality is, if your competitor does this, and not only are they saving money, but they probably can output and produce more as well. So you're trying to do the right thing and keep people around and keep them employed and keep them earning good money and everything. But if you can't compete in another 9 to 12 months because your competitor is freaking crushing you because they have less overhead, you have to lay off all of those people, 100% of those people, instead of 40%, 50%, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a way to stop it, man.
I don't either. And I'll play devil's advocate there and to play into the fear mongering a little bit on a lesser scale. I would compare this to, I have a funny story that backs this up. I would compare this to like self checkout and Easy Pass, right? On a lesser scale, that's how this started. It affects the workforce, right? The Easy Pass. I remember when Mel and I were traveling. It was before we even had kids, and Easy Pass was becoming a popular thing. And I pulled up to one of the toll booths and I asked him for an application, and he damn near threw something at me from in there. He's like, "That's my job. I'm not giving you an application for that." I was like, "You know what? I didn't even think of it that way." But it's true. So
Know your audience, Chris. Know your audience.
so where's the breaking point? Because then that happens. We're putting human beings out of that workforce. They got to go find something else. And when that person implements the AI and cuts their workforce, and then they go somewhere else, where's the breaking point where the unemployment, right? Like it's not feasible to think everybody's going to become an entrepreneur.
No, that doesn't seem logical or reasonable. But I think that's the very weird aspect of what we're talking about is when I try to look on a 5-year time horizon, I can't even fathom what the world looks like, what the workplace looks like, what real estate looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is you're in a better position if you are an early adopter to something, and it gives you more knowledge into how technologies work and can be leveraged for you or your business or your family or whatever. And on top of that, if you're an early adopter and you're good and you put out a good product and everything, you can also make a lot of money in a really short period of time. And when the world does change massively in some way, shape, or form that, I don't know, my crystal ball hasn't shown me that yet, you're better prepared.
Yeah, I
You got
agree
more
with that.
capital.
I agree with that. And well, I wanted to put that argument out there just to have a flip side of it. But flipping back to your side on a positive spin, you could almost say that when you are out ahead of it and you learn at least what it's doing and what it could do for you, then you build something out that's AI driven, that has all of those positive attributes to it, and then I don't know, invite humans back in that help you manage that, maybe because there always has to be some human interaction. So maybe that's where we
Of
draw
course.
people back into the workforce.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And again, who knows what that looks like, but I think the worst thing that anybody can do is be like, oh, like technology, I don't want anything to do with that. Like I
All
don't
right. Yeah.
want, these AI programs in my life, and like I think you'll be sorry.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% with that.
So yeah, man. Maybe that's too tinfoil hat. I don't freaking know, but
I don't think so. I mean, maybe 7 years ago, but since 2020, there is nothing you can say to surprise anybody nowadays. I don't
that's
think
true.
we all we either all threw our tinfoil hats on, or we threw them out and said, whatever comes down the road, we'll just handle it.
Isn't that the truth, man? Isn't that the truth? All I do know is I'm trying to make real estate investors as much money as humanly possible, more efficiently than they ever have with our platform. And if I do that even a little bit, which we already are, I'm happy.
Amen. Well, we're coming up on our hour here, so I want to thank you for being on the Boardroom Podcast. Before we go, how do people get a hold of you? You want to tell them the website that they can go check out your new program?
Yeah, absolutely. The website, revamp365.ai. You can find me on any of the major social media platforms, on YouTube, Drew Farnese, the Revamp channel on there, Facebook, Instagram, all under Drew Farnese, TikTok, Drew Farnese. Yeah, man, reach out. Reach
And
out.
we'll get all that stuff in the show notes too.
Much appreciated. Chris, thank you so much for having me on, man.
All right, thank you.
Love it.
All right.